Hey, Walt here from StogieReview.com with another video cigar review. And the cigar I'm going to be reviewing today is one that I reviewed not terribly long ago. It was right after the trade show. I was going through some samples, and I reviewed the EP Carrillo Edition Limitada 2010. And I reviewed that cigar, and I remember it being pretty intense as far as the flavor goes. And I hadn't had another one since. And then recently I got two of the new Elencos in the mail, which as it turns out is the exact same blend. So from what I understand, or what I would imagine, the limited edition 2010 was so popular that EP Carrillo secured enough tobacco to do a standard run with it the following year, and it's been repackaged with a different band. It only has one band, and to be quite honest, I really like the darker band. Actually, I like the darker band a lot more than I do his standard band, the one you'll see on the inaugural 2009 and the core line. I guess it's on the short run as well, but I really like that dark band, the black and gray with a red stripe. But anyway, let's take a look at this cigar, and then I'll tell you like the whole story, how it came to be, and how this cigar is rather interesting. But first and foremost, I really like the band. The wrapper's got a nice oily sheen to it, really small veins, consistent color head to foot. The cap's neatly applied. The seam that runs down the cigar is pressed flat. It's not raised in any spots, or it's not lifting in any spots. And all in all, this cigar looks really well constructed. It's got like a sort of a raisiny kind of smell on the foot. It feels nice and firm, well packed, and it's got a nice weight to it. It feels as though there's a lot of tobacco in here. So, with the preliminary stuff out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and clip this cigar, check the draw, and then sort of launch into my not really so important story. The draw is fantastic. Despite the cigar being heavy and being pretty firm, the draw is absolutely perfect. There's just a little bit of resistance there, but if this is any indication of how it's going to smoke, I'm going to get lots and lots of smoke, and it should be very free-flowing. And I'm getting that same sort of raisiny kind of flavor through the cold draw, and actually just kind of, it makes me think of like Raisin Bran. Where it's got sort of that bran kind of flavor that you get in the flakes, and it's got that raisiny kind of sweetness. What's interesting. So anyway, I mentioned that there's a significance to this cigar. And I guess it was like last week. I was working from home, hanging out with my daughter. I was taking a break from work. We were just hanging out in the living room. I think I had like Little Einsteins or Yo Gabba Gabba on TV, and we were just playing on the floor. And I hear a thump outside on the porch. Now I'd been expecting a package, so it wasn't a big deal. And I got up, went to the porch to go grab the package, and underneath this big carton of baby wipes, which is what I was waiting on, there was a small padded envelope. Now at first I was like really paranoid, because when you see a padded envelope, or at least for me, when I see a padded envelope, most times it's cigar samples, and here the big carton of baby wipes was sitting on top of it. But I guess what happened was the driver sort of lifted the box up and slipped the envelope underneath so it wouldn't blow away. And I felt much better when I picked up the envelope and realized that the cigars weren't under that like 15-pound box of baby wipes. But anyway, I look, I see it's a package from EP Carrillo. I head in the house, open up the package, and inside I've got 2 of the Elencos and 2 of the New Wave Connecticut. There's 1 of each. There's 1 Robusto, 1 Toro. And the Elencos really kind of caught my eye right from the beginning. It was just calling my name, and we had beautiful weather that day. So what I wound up doing was, after my daughter laid down for a nap, when she got up a little bit later, I got her all geared up, little jacket, pink jacket. I put her in her pink umbrella stroller, and we went for a walk. And I took along an Elencos, the Robusto, with me. But actually, before we left, I ended up sending Ernie Carrillo an email thanking him for the samples, and he responded back to telling me I was welcome, and let him know what I thought. So when I left the house, I took an Elencos Robusto with me. So me and my daughter are walking along, and I fired up the cigar, took lots of pictures with my phone, and just sort of started tweeting my thoughts of the stick as I was walking. And when I got back, I sort of summarized all those tweets, and I sent Ernie an email, explaining my thoughts. And I had mentioned to him, I said, this cigar is rather mild. It's got a lot of delicate flavors. It was really good, really dynamic cigar, interesting flavors. But it's a bit too mild for my taste. It's not something that I would look out and purchase. And he says to me, I was reading all your tweets, and I saw that you made mention that the draw was kind of stiff and you weren't getting a lot of smoke volume. He said, I wonder if that's what caused the mildness, because what you smoked was actually it's just the rebanded Edition Limitada 2010. He said, and I remember seeing that video, and you said that it was pretty intense. And of course, it prompted another response from me saying, wow, that's really interesting, because the cigars were night and day. The limited edition 2010 was like intense. It was actually a bit much for me. And here I am smoking this Elencos, and it's super mild, delicate flavors, just total opposite end of the spectrum. And he said, smoke the larger cigar, see if that has a draw that's more free, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. So here we are, and already this cigar has started with a bang. It's much more intense than that original Elencos that I smoked, and the draw is just fantastic. Lots of dense smoke, easy to get through, easy to pass through the sinuses. It's got a nice spicy component to it. And that raisin bran kind of a flavor that I was getting in the beginning with the cold draw hasn't transferred through. This is more of a dry, kind of woody flavor with maybe like kind of a dried cherry kind of a tartness going on. But so far we're off to a really good start. Looks like I may need to to help the burn along on one side, which is probably completely my fault. I got it like half lit, and then I started talking too much, and it kind of went out, and then while you were watching me. But anyway, that is the introduction to this video. This is probably going to get kind of long, unless I run out of things to talk about and sort of whisk my way through it, but we'll just see what happens. So sit tight, and I will be right back, and we'll take a look at the first third of my EP Carrillo Elencos. Alright, well, I'm back plugging along on my EP Carrillo Elencos, and as you can see, I've got a little bit of flowering going on in the ash, and my assumption is the reason being is just because a few minutes ago I knocked the ash off, and it was kind of jagged when it broke, and now it's starting to develop again, and now I've got like this ash kind of falling off every which way. When I did ash the cigar, I had a real nice long ash. It was compacted. It was the kind of ash that really held on. I tapped it once and it sort of broke and leaned, and then I tapped it again and it leaned a little further, and by the third tap it finally broke off the end of the cigar and left a jagged edge. So it's nice and strong. It probably could have went much longer than about the inch that I had it. And it was light in color, tightly compacted, very neat looking ash. As far as the draw is concerned, I'm still getting just a perfect draw. There's a little bit of resistance there. It is just the way I like it. Nice, dense mouthfuls of smoke, easy to get through the sinus. Very different from my Robusto sample. There, the draw was tighter. I was getting less smoke volume. It was more airy than dense, and I would imagine that's where a lot of the power sort of fell off, because this cigar is much more intense. It's a lot more along the lines of that limited edition 2010 that I smoked a little while back. It doesn't seem quite as potent as that one. So this is somewhere kind of in the middle, although it is much, it's way further up the body and flavor scale than the one I had just the other week. And one of the interesting flavors about that other cigar is I was getting a sort of fruity wine kind of flavor, and as soon as I tasted it, it reminded me of this blush wine that a local winery makes. It's the only real wine that I like that comes out of that winery, and I used to get it around Christmas time and things like that, and it reminds me of that. That other cigar had that mild fruitiness, and it just brought to mind that blush wine. This cigar definitely has that, but it's buried under a lot of intensity. I mean, there's some definite power to the cigar, and that wine sort of flavor is buried, and it's kind of unfortunate because I really did like that flavor. I think it made the cigar very complex, very very interesting, and here it's there. You just kind of have to root for it. Through the sinus, I'm getting more of a leathery flavor. It's got kind of a chalky texture, and there's a nutty, woody kind of flavor that I'm getting as well. It makes for a very interesting cigar. It's kind of intense going through the sinuses. That's why there was a delayed pause. I was waiting for my eyes to start watering. My nose was burning, but I really do appreciate that sort of punch in the face every now and again that you get from a really potent cigar through the sinus. I've developed a bad habit of retrohaling like 90% of the time. And what happens is I sort of grown numb to that, I don't know, that mild burning sensation, that power that comes through. And I really don't get that with very many cigars. And when it does come through, I kind of like it because it's a little different. It's not something that I get all the time. It's not that I don't get the flavors anymore. I just don't get that punch. And in this case, I'm getting that punch through the sinus. But it's burning well. It's performing well. I'm enjoying it. And actually, I'm enjoying it more than I remember that other limited edition 2010. I think that the last sample that was really sort of subdued was more interesting because you kind of had to root for the flavors a little more. There wasn't that intensity laying on top of them. But even with this cigar being much more powerful or much more intense, I'm enjoying it. And I'm looking forward to smoking some more. So sit tight, and I'll be right back again. Well, I'm back, and as you can see, since the ash has been developing a little bit, I've got a much more compacted shape, completely different from that bit of flaking and flowering you saw last time. And the burn line, it's swelled a little bit, where it kind of looks swollen, just around the burn line. It's fairly thin. It's nice and dark. It's pretty even, and all in all, the cigar is burning wonderfully. I'm getting a nice mouthful of smoke with each puff. Really dense, coats the palate well. I would say the body is probably on the low end of full, and when I say that, I mean that it's coating the palate and it's giving me a mouthfeel that I think is full, but it's not lingering a long time. It doesn't feel like higher up the full spectrum. Now the flavor intensity, or the flavor level, I think is way up on that full spectrum. It just hammers the palate, and it just produces a really intense flavor. The flavors that I'm getting out of it aren't much different from the previous third. I mean, there's like a woody, nutty kind of a flavor. There's sort of like a dry cherry kind of a tart flavor that lingers in the background. I'm no longer getting that raisin flavor that I was before. I think it's transitioned more to that cherry and has become tart. And that's about it as far as the flavors go. I haven't really noticed anything different. Now, I had mentioned before that the finish had sort of a chalky texture, and now it's reminding me more of like charcoal. It's got a darker kind of element to it, and it still has that sort of chalky texture, which is why I'm thinking charcoal. It's both chalky and kind of bitter. So it doesn't linger really long on the palate. Like after that last puff, it's sort of gone now. The flavor and body are kind of hammering my palate. I'm feeling kind of weary. This is the type of cigar when I finish it, I'll probably be done. And even if this were earlier in the day and I were intending on smoking cigars later, I would take a break between this cigar and the next one. There's some cigars where I can just smoke them. I can smoke cigars back to back. If I'm sitting at a cigar shop, I can do 4, with like 10-15 minutes between cigars, and it's not a big deal. With a cigar like this, I don't know that I could go from this one to another cigar in such a short period of time. I would need to, kind of sip on some water and maybe give myself an hour and a half to sort of rejuvenate the palate, so to speak. But I am enjoying it, even though it is a bit intense. It's much more like the Edition Limitada 2010 sample that I had, as opposed to the recent Elencos sample that was much different. I mean, I even though I like the intensity and the power in this cigar, I was kind of fond of the one that didn't perform properly, because it just seemed more of a finesse cigar and less of a powerhouse. And I like those from time to time. It's not something I would have picked up, frequently, because it's really not my style. I like this type of cigar as a more repetitive stick. It's something that I would smoke more often than that milder cigar. But I do kind of have a fond place in my heart for those milder cigars, and I thought that was really interesting, and it's a shame, because I'm thinking back fondly of this other sample that I really did enjoy, but it was kind of a fluke. It wasn't supposed to be what it was, and it was a direct result of the draw being tight, the smoke volume being the smoke volume being less and less dense. It was kind of airy, and that resulted in the experience that I got, which I really didn't mind. But I'm enjoying this cigar nonetheless, even though I am thinking fondly of that other cigar. But that's the second third. I'll be back one more time. We'll take a look at the last third, wrap up the video, and with any kind of luck, this will be posted on Friday morning and not Friday evening. So cross your fingers and we'll see what happens. Sit tight. Well, it's about time to wrap up my Carrillo Elencos, and as you can see, it's still burning very, very well. The ash is holding on nice and strong, nice compacted shape, no flaking going on. The draw is still fantastic, lots of dense smoke, easy to get through the sinus, and coats the palate really well. Still what I would consider low end of full as far as the body is concerned. Very full in terms of flavor intensity. The finish is more or less the same. It still has that sort of a chalky texture with kind of like a charcoal kind of aftertaste. It's not displeasing. It's kind of interesting. It's not something I get out of a lot of cigars, and I really don't mind it. In terms of flavors, they're more or less the same. I'm getting like a dried cherry, kind of a tart flavor in the background. It's a little more subdued now. The power is ramped up just a bit, and as a result, it's kind of shrouded the flavors a little bit. I'm still getting sort of a come and go, kind of a nutty, woody leather trifecta. One flavor sort of leaps over top of the other, and they go back and forth throughout the cigar, and the intensity kind of goes up and down. It makes for a complex cigar, I think. Dynamic flavors, they're nice and rich, and all in all, I enjoyed it. But as I mentioned in the last third, I find myself thinking fondly to that other sample, one that I definitely enjoyed. It's not something that I would find myself smoking regularly because it was milder than I generally prefer. But the flavors are just so delicate and interesting that I just keep thinking back fondly to that cigar, which was much more subdued compared to this one. So even though that cigar was a fluke, I kind of like it a little better than or actually a little more than a little better. I guess it's safe to say I like that fluke better than this cigar. Again, this is not a bad cigar, it's just rather intense, and it is beating up my palate. I'm feeling kind of worn out. I've been sipping on water throughout the cigar, but when this cigar is done, I'm done. Well, I'm done for the evening anyway, but had it been earlier, I'd probably be done for the night. My palate's kind of worn out. But again, really enjoyed it, and if I'm going to get this video up by tomorrow morning, I really need to stop talking, get this video encoded, uploaded, and all that good stuff. So with that said, I enjoyed it. The price point on this one is $12. This is a Toro size, which is the Elites, I think it's called. There's a Robusto size, which I think is a 5 1/4 by 50. That retails for $9.50, and there's a 6 1/4 by 52 or 54 Torpedo. Now they're all in the the 10. Well, the one's $9.50, but they're all more or less $10 and up. 3 sizes. Partially because of the price point, partially because it's a bit intense. This isn't something I'd reach for frequently. It is something that I would like to have in my humidor for the odd occasion when I want something that's really intense, and something that's going to kind of cut through maybe a glass of Zaya or some something sweet and full of alcohol. But I enjoyed it, and I definitely I look forward to smoking more. And as I said before, if you were a big fan of the 2010 limited edition, and you were kind of bummed out that it was a limited edition, you couldn't get it anymore, well, here's your answer. It's the exact same blend, and again, I would imagine that it's a repackaged 2010 because of it being wildly successful. I would imagine that Carrillo cigars sought out whatever tobacco they needed to remake the cigars in a standard production format. So there you have it. I need to turn this video off and get cracking. So until next time, happy smoking.